I'm worried about the future of COVID-19, but probably not for the reasons you think. I'm troubled by the fact that so many people are hesitant to take the vaccines, and I get why. It shouldn't be mandatory since it's your body, but I'm terrified about the results coming from the decision that many people are choosing to make by not inoculating themselves. And let me explain why. We are over a year into this pandemic, yet many people have either never understood or have totally forgotten some key elements regarding the virus. Some people have just stopped taking it seriously altogether. Some people still believe in the misinformation that continues to spread about the virus and how it spreads, who it affects, and how the vaccines against them work. And some people don't trust Bill Gates, which is absolutely fine. I don't trust Bill Gates either, and you shouldn't trust Bill Gates, but I probably have completely different reasons why. So strap in and let's go over this bit by bit together. Right now, India is going through one of, if not the most terrible spikes in COVID cases so far during the pandemic. If you don't think what's going on in India right now matters to you, you're deeply mistaken, and I'll get to why in a second. As of recording this video, the country of India has been reporting 300,000 to 350,000 new cases a day, and it's still growing. They're still breaking records. That is absolutely insane. Hospitals are running out of oxygen. People are being turned away. There's no space for new patients. They have to build makeshift outdoor crematoriums just to dispose of the patients who didn't survive. Assuming you're American, like me, I know what you must be thinking. Wow, that's terrible for them, but what does this have to do with the US? Cases in the US are way down. That is correct. But that's mostly due to the efforts by the national vaccine rollout conducted by the Biden administration, who are making widespread vaccinations available through the national vaccine rollout for the public, and apparently had to create their own since the Trump administration apparently had no plan for distribution. This rollout, of course, has been assisted by Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, who have patented their own vaccines for COVID-19. So what's the problem with India having a whole lot of cases right now? Well, we'll get to that right after we talk about Bill Gates. Early on in the pandemic, everyone, well, not everyone, but some pretty funny people thought that Bill Gates was on a mission to inject the entire world with vaccines in order to control people with microchips or something, thereby pushing the need for everyone to get vaccinated. This idea spread far and wide for weeks, but here's the thing. If Bill Gates actually wanted to vaccinate the entire world, maybe he wouldn't have talked AstraZeneca into keeping their patent private for their vaccine. You know, so they can make more money. Despite $9 billion in public funds being put into COVID vaccine research. Can't make them publicly available. Because these vaccines do not have the patent publicized for generic use, poorer countries are unable to develop their own vaccines, and wealthy countries just aren't sharing. Now, India isn't poor, and they actually produce the majority of the world's vaccines. However, they're at the brink of running out of vaccines for their own citizens to use, and are not granted access to more publicly available COVID-19 vaccines, like the ones being used in the EU and the US. That doesn't mean they should be neglected. India's fascist leader, Narendra Modi, hasn't been making things easier. In fact, a huge reason that India is having such a giant surge in cases is because large religious and social gatherings are allowed to resume taking place, which resulted in many super spreader events, leaving the country in the condition now it's in. But listen closely. This does not mean that the Indian people are undeserving of vaccine access, especially given the fact that they have the second highest population of any country in the world, with over 1.3 billion people living there. So again, how does this affect the rest of the world, including you and me? It's simple. If you understand how viruses work, you understand that viruses have the tendency to mutate. That's why there is so much emphasis for everyone who is eligible right now to get a vaccine, to get one. Despite how young and healthy you may be, Joe Rogan. Even if your age group isn't affected as much by the virus, not only can you still unknowingly spread the virus to other people, especially the most vulnerable, but people who come down with the virus have been reported to receive permanent organ damage, even if the sickness given to them by the virus wasn't severe. And not to mention, allowing the virus to continue spreading gives the virus more chances to mutate. So let me be extremely clear with each and every one of you. A virus we have a limited number of vaccines for that is capable of mutating poses a threat to the entire world. Keep in mind that right now, the UK strain of COVID is the dominant strain in the US. It's more contagious than the initial strain that swept through the US because it mutated into something more transmissible. In India, a recently discovered triple mutated variant was discovered in parts of the country. This insider, as India contends with its second major wave of COVID cases and a double mutated variant of the virus, which we'll get to in a second, it now faces a new threat, a triple mutant variant. Scientists found 2 triple mutant variants in patient samples in 4 states: Maharashtra, Delhi, West Bengal, and Chhattisgarh. Researchers in the country have dubbed it the Bengal strain and say it has the potential to be even more infectious than the double mutant variant. And from Business Insider India, India's double mutant COVID variant has spread in at least 17 countries. Fantastic news, right? The variant was first detected on December 1st, 2020, and it's partly held responsible for the second massive resurgence of coronavirus in the country. Right now, it's only a variant of interest instead of a variant of concern, whereas the British, South African, and Brazilian variants are variants of concern. Now, if this doesn't concern you somehow, consider this. If a mutation in COVID-19 renders it into a vaccine-resistant strain, that strain may become the dominant strain in the world, making all of our vaccination and safeguard practices up until that point completely pointless. The more resistant the virus becomes, the harder it is to contain. The harder it is to contain, the deadlier it can be. This creates a domino effect. And it could be worse than that. If this virus mutates into something strong enough in terms of deadliness and transmissibility, it can be an extinction level event. Listen, I know if you're watching this, you're probably not dumb. But maybe you know someone that is. So, what if you're skeptical of the vaccines, but not skeptical of the virus? I'm sure you know plenty of people like that. Well, let's run some numbers real quick, because the amount of people who say both
there have been some bad reactions to the COVID vaccine, therefore we can't trust them,
and
COVID isn't that serious, everything should be open, stop wearing masks,
is too high. Too high. At the time of recording, the number of COVID cases in the U.S. is 33 million. The number of COVID deaths in the U.S., 588,000. The number of shots administered in the U.S. so far, about 250 million. The number of patients with severe reactions, at least 6,000. Could be more, but there's not much data on that. For context, 0.0187% of U.S. COVID cases result in death, while 0.00024% of those who received shots so far have had severe reactions. Selective fear. Look, as an anarchist, I'm not in favor of the state mandating vaccines, but do not throw a fit if private businesses tell you it is required to work for them, or shop from them in person, or attend their events, or whatever. I've been concerned for a while about certain pockets of the country that certain anti-vaccine sites will start popping up, which will include communities and businesses that consist of people opposed to wearing masks and taking the vaccines. You can also call these safe spaces. However, please refer to what I said earlier in the video to understand what might happen if the virus was to spread in these areas, because it won't be safe very long. Final thoughts: you shouldn't get the vaccine because a government tells you to. You should get it because it's the right thing to do. unless we want to contribute to a possible COVID mutation that becomes vaccine resistant and reverses all scientific progress that the global science community, as well as what ordinary people have sacrificed. We might want to not only get inoculated as soon as we possibly can, but for the sake of humanity and all that is righteous, let's either make extra vaccines and give them to places like India, or just waive the goddamn patents for the vaccines so we can allow poor countries getting ravaged by the virus to create generics, you greedy, genocidal, shit-brain capitalists! Thanks for watching. Apparently had to create their own vaccine. I'm jumping.